As I count my ends in the back of the Jeep, my young niggas, they say they wanna be like me. They say they wanna ball like me. I'm pulling up 4-4-15s and they beating down the block and the police on my ass. I bit the corner and smashed.
Okay guys, today I'm going to be going over what I look for before I take my BMW E60 with the N52 engine on a long journey. It's really just secure checks, and this is what will ensure that you're going to get to your journey safely with no issues, and your car isn't going to give no problems down the road. And I'm also going to show you what I like to carry with me when I go on a long journey. So let's pop the bonnet and I'm going to show you. So the first one I like to check, guys, is the coolant. Now the reason I say about the coolant is because it's the most unchecked one, and you guys know that these guys run an electric water pump and they like to fail, so it's something that you have to check rigorously. So let's check the coolant on this, and this is what I always like to check. So as you see, my one's fine, no problems there. Now another one you guys are going to probably want to check is your valve cover, and make sure it's not leaking before you drive, because you don't want to smell of burnt oil coming down your engine or smelling it in the cabin. And as you'll see, everything is fine on my valve cover itself, so we got no issues there. It's just very wet from water getting in, but apart from that, everything on the engine's fine. So as you'll see, the valve cover is actually perfect, no leaks, no nothing from the valve cover. So we've got that one covered and perfectly fine. So now the next one, guys, which I like to always check, as you guys know, is the oil filter housing gasket. Now what I like to do is just look through the gaps here and see if it's leaking down onto the block or anywhere, or coolant. Now it has been raining quite heavy for the last few days, so I'm going to expect it to have water everywhere, and you guys probably will see that there's water down there in the under tray. That's not from any kind of leak, let me assure you. Someone did bring it up, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's not to do with a leak. This is from rainwater coming off the bonnet here, coming down into the grills, and then going straight there into the under tray. And I know I don't take the under tray off, as I have no need to, but it's just worth checking if you're gonna be driving this car, that it is only water and not coolant. I've got used to it, so I know what it is now. But apart from that, you just make sure you check that oil filter housing gasket. As I said, the best way to determine it is to just look down here and see if you've got oil or coolant down the block. If your coolant's going low, you can usually see the leak running down the sides here, and really there it will be dirty because I cleaned it all up, so I would know if there's a leak. Now if you do use a BMW genuine one, it will stop the leak, but it's still worth checking it regardless. Always check it, because you don't want to be driving and you haven't checked that, because what will happen is the oil will leak down, especially if it's leaking from the oil cooler, onto your belts, onto your tensioner, and just derail the whole system, and you don't want that. So just make sure you check that, because as you'll see, what will happen is oil will get everywhere, and you don't want to get through that at all. You want to try and avoid that scenario, so that's why we check it before we go out on a long drive all the time. As you see, the engine is a bit wet, just where it's got water inside it, it's going everywhere, so we just check everything before we end up driving this car any kind of long distances, because I don't want the belts to derail when we go on a long journey. So the next one, guys, will be your tires. And now when you come to check your tires, you just want to make sure that your tires are a good tread depth, because obviously, as you guys, a lot of you guys know, in the UK it's illegal if you get caught with bald tires. That's points on your license, and you don't want that. You also want to check that they're the right correct pressure. Now it's very important that if you check the pressure and you pump them up, either side, either front or rear, you make sure you reset it on the computer inside the car, which I'm going to show you before you take off, because otherwise you'll get a run flat indicator light saying that your tires have gone flat, because it can't detect it won't be able to pick up the pressure from what you filled up. The computers have to know how much tires in the pressure, because all it'll think is that you've got a puncher. So you make sure that when you do that, you make sure you reset it on the system, and I'm going to show you how to do that anyway. So we'll go over into the car, and I'm going to show you what I check for in the car before I leave, on my car as always. And as you guys know, there's no dipstick in the engine, so you have to check the oil on the computer. I'm going to show you everything, how to check that and how we go about doing that, and also how to check for your pressure in your tires as well, and make sure you reset them if you do have to pump up the air on the tires, because like me, this car sits a lot, hence why the discs are all rusty, don't really get used much, and it's just something you have to be aware of and make sure you check. So guys, when you first start up your car like I have, you just want to make sure there's no errors coming up on the dash, no lights out, no bulbs out, and that the car's running smoothly, ready to go. You just want to make sure there's no faults, no engine management lights. If there is, make sure you clear them before you go. Otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of problems on the road. You don't want that. So you just want to be checking everything on this car. The next thing you're going to want to go over to is your iDrive system itself. Then you're just going to want to press the scroll wheel in, and then you're just going to want to go over to info services and service. Then you're going to want to go over to engine oil level. Now as you see there, my engine oil level was at the max, properly filled, and so we know that my oil level is absolutely perfect. So we know that this car is going to make it there. Now that's not to say that a lot of you's got your oil might be at the max, the next minute it might be completely empty. So always carry oil with you. As you know, some of these cars like to burn oil, some of them don't. It's not for everybody, it's not the same for everybody, but it's good to just carry it with you just in case. I always tell everyone, make sure you do, because like I say, depending on the heat, the weather, where you're going, how long you're driving, these engines run very hot, the oil can break down and it could become low on oil. You don't want that, so it's better to be safe than sorry. Always carry oil with you in the rear of your car. It's something I carry with me all the time. So now let's go on to the RDC indicator. So when you go onto here, you want to press the scroll wheel in again, go to settings, then what you want to go to is vehicle and tires, then what you want to go is flat tire monitor. Then you want to, when you fill up the air in the tires before you leave to go anywhere, make sure you confirm the tire pressure. What will happen is you'll get the run flat indicator saying tire pressure loss. So make sure you confirm the tire pressure inside the system. You do not want to be driving and get that message. Anytime you fill up air in the tires, you make sure you hit that button and reset them. It's something a lot of people forget, and then they get it coming up on their car, then they want to code it having this problem. It's not a problem, it's due to where you yourself haven't reset it in the system, so the system doesn't know. So another one you want to check for, guys, now you've got to bear in mind this is the cold start up, is a lot of smoke coming from your exhaust. So now if this smoke is blue or black, this is something is a major cause for concern, and I would suggest not driving the car, because it means blue means oil, black means running too rich and burning too much fuel, which can damage your cats. So this is another thing when you first start up your car, and what I always like to check is for smoke. If there's any kind of smoke and it doesn't clear like that, once it's cold, now that's just all condensation, as you see water from overnight where it's been raining and I haven't started the car. But if it doesn't clear just like that does, that's a bad sign, and I would suggest not to even remove the car. I would suggest to get it looked at before you even think of driving this car anywhere. So that's another thing that I like to check before I go anywhere on long journeys for smoke. Smoke gives you the telltale signs of what's wrong with your engine straight away. So the next one I like to do, guys, as you'll see here, is I like to scan my car. Now before I set off, I like to scan my car to make sure there's no hidden fault codes lying in the car before I drive off and get any unexpected problems. So scanning it is the best way to ensure that you're not going to have problems when you get down the road or 100 miles down the road, because if there's a pending fault code, you can sort it now before you get down the road. Now what I like to do is I carry this laptop, and as you'll see here, the OBD cable with me. I don't carry the icon, it's just too big to carry around, too much headache set up. And what I do is I carry this in the boot of my car always, because if any fault code comes up, I have breakdown cover, but I'm not going to allow breakdown cover to use their diagnostic machine and try and tell me it's this, it's that. I'd rather use this and get an accurate fault code and know what it is, and if I can fix it at the road, I will. So this is why I like to carry this machine, because sometimes you can get away with resetting the code and your car will carry on driving. Now breakdown cover, I've got that on my car as well, and that's preferably for, you know, if something was to happen with coolant loss or oil loss, I can get the car recovered. But as I said to you, I carry the laptop purely for if there's any kind of codes hidden, I will check them before I leave here and rectify the issue if I can, if I'm in time. But usually I do this before I'm going to go out in the car, and usually it comes up like this, the same way it always does. I do have a couple of faults in the LM module, which is the dip beam, left 40 and main beam. It's nothing really major, and clearance light left, and that's all to do with obviously water getting into the light itself, but it's not a major issue. As you can see here, I'll just clear it and it will go anyway. So it's nothing major faults. I haven't had no faults on the dash for the lights, so it's nothing it's not existent. So what we just do is we scan again, make sure there's no fault codes, and that's it. Realistically, as long as your car is showing all green, your car's good to go. Make sure you drive it. Just carry a scanner with you. It doesn't have to be, it can be a cheap scanner. It's just so you can reset the fault codes if you have to, but preferably I'll take ISTA, because if you do get left stranded, and you don't know the codes, this will show you in, obviously do everything you need to do to get the car back running ASAP. And it, like I say, something I carry with me all over the place, and I will always carry it with me no matter what car I go in, whether that be the E60, the E46 or any kind of BMW. Even if I go to pick up a BMW, this laptop always comes with me. So guys, another one you're going to want to test before you go out is something I always do, is I take the car for a short test drive. I check all the steering while I'm driving, all the ball joints, make sure there's no clonking, no rattles, and to make sure the gearbox is fine. Obviously fault codes are not persistent, anything can come up when you go along and drive, so you just want to make sure the gears, cop box is fine, make sure your steering's fine, all the suspension's fine, everything's steering properly. Make sure, and like I say, I check everything, I always do. I still make sure the cruise control works, I make sure everything always works on the car. Before I set out, I make sure all my indicators work, which they do. I make sure they work perfectly, because you don't want to get down the road and know you have to go and change a bulb. I've got everything at home. It means spending more money. You know, most people don't carry bulbs in their car. Just make sure gearbox is fine, car is fine. I like to let my car warm up, because then that way the gearbox all gets warmed up before. I know a lot of people say not to let a petrol warm up, but I've always been under the belief to let these cars warm up. I believe they perform better when warmed up. Otherwise the gearbox, you know, where the oil end got round, you're stretching out the clutch pack. That's why they hold gear for a long time before they change when they're cold, compared to when they're hot. So that's why I let the car warm up fully before I take this car, because especially if I know I'm going a long drive, I like to know this car is going to perform the way I want it to perform. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was just a brief video showing you what I look for on my BMW E60, and just to show you, because a lot of guys have been requesting what I carry with me, how I check for things before I go on a long journey, and they want to see what I check for on my car myself. So I've just made this video for you guys just to see what I check on my car. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. It was really just a brief video just to show you what I check for, because I am going away, so this car is going to be doing a lot of miles. But I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching this BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.